I'm Charles Arnn. I teach at Wesley Seminary at Indiana Wesleyan University. I've been asked to share a few thoughts on the topic of mobilizing ministry teams and mission teams in a local church. When we think of mobilizing anyone to do anything, we should first understand what it is we're trying to accomplish. That is, we mobilize people to accomplish a goal. So let me ask you a question. What is the goal of your church? What are you mobilizing people in your church to do? Donald McGavran, a premier missiologist, once said, "There are many good things a church can do. There are some important things a church should do. But there's only one essential thing a church must do. That," he said, "is to actively pursue our Lord's command to go and make disciples." The goal of making disciples is not only to reach out to non-Christians, nor is disciple making only the nurture of spiritual growth in believers. Rather, it's a dynamic interaction between the two. It's interesting to note, however, that churches tend to focus much more of their spiritual development on members than on their spiritual outreach to non-members. In fact, it's easy to tell a church's priorities simply by looking at the number of places where someone can do something in that church. Let me give you an assignment. Go home and count the total number of ministry positions in your church. Any volunteer or appointed or elected position in which a layperson could serve. Then, put these positions into one of two categories, Class 1 or Class 2. Class 1 positions focus primarily inward toward maintenance and service of the existing church. Choir members, ushers, Sunday school teachers, board members are generally Class 1 activities. Class 2 positions focus primarily outward and connect with people in the surrounding community in an effort to reach them for Christ in the church. People who follow up on church visitors, leaders in Vacation Bible School, mission teams are examples of Class 2 activities. My experience is that the ratio of Class 1 positions to Class 2 positions in most churches is around 15-1. That is, at least 15 roles exist for maintenance and service of the existing church for every one activity that focuses on non-members. So what is a healthy balance? Well, realistically, I would suggest that a ratio of around 3-1 is healthy. 3 ministry positions focused inward for every 1 position focused outward. And let me hasten to point out that it's quite possible, in fact desirable, for a Class 1 role to be broadened and include Class 2 outreach activities. I was speaking once with a group of ushers at a church that had determined to become more outward focused. I asked them to brainstorm ways in which the position of usher on a Sunday morning worship service might become more of a Class 2 activity. Their eventual plan was a creative one. It was for ushers to escort church visitors to a seat next to a member in the sanctuary and then introduce the member to the visitor, with the idea of encouraging a conversation between the two. A small effort, perhaps, but one that could go a long way toward making a good first impression with church visitors. So the point here is that ministry teams, and in fact, every member with a church role or task, should ask the question, am I contributing to the purpose of my church? Let's take a brief look at mobilizing mission teams for local church outreach. It's one of my favorite topics because I've spent much of the last 6 years actually researching and documenting how churches are building missional connections with unchurched people in their community. I recently finished a book on the topic called Heartbeat: How to Turn Passion into Ministry in Your Church. In the book, we talk about the fact that the vast majority of people come to faith through relationships with a Christian friend, neighbor, or relative. However, we also point out that the longer a person has been a Christian, the fewer friends that he or she has who are not believers. Thus, the most effective form of outreach through relationships is often frustrated because there are few or no relationships that church members have with non-believers. And I would suggest that this can be one of the key roles for mission teams in your church. That is, building relationships between members and non-members. So how are such relationships developed? Well, it's actually quite easy. There are just 2 things that go into developing friendships. 1, spending time together. 2, with people you share things in common. There's a great line by C.S. Lewis in his book, The 4 Loves, on how relationships are formed. He says, Friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, "What? You too? I thought I was the only one." For example, some people in and outside your church will be especially concerned about raising a child with special needs because they have one in their family. Others in your church will be more passionate about financial management since it seems there's never enough money to go around. Bringing people together who share common concerns, whether they're Christians or not, is a wonderful way to nurture new relationships. So as you begin thinking about building those relationships with unchurched people in your community, here are 4 quick suggestions. Number 1, find the passion. Identify the things in the people in your church that they care deeply about. The odds are good that people outside your church will have many of the same concerns. Number 2, create a group around that passion. The group should include both Christians and non-Christians with an ideal split of about 50-50. Number 3, nurture deeper relationships with the people in that group. There are needs we all have that go beyond the concern for health or finances or relationships. In fact, Neil McBride, in his book, How to Lead Small Groups, suggests 5 deeper needs that everyone has. The first, we need a place to belong. Second, we all need a sense of balance. Third, we're looking for authentic relationships. Fourth, we all need help through transitions. And finally, we need spiritual answers to today's problems. So, number 1, we've found passion. 2, we've brought people together who share passion in and outside the church. 3, we've nurtured and deepened relationships. The 4th step is to bring God into the conversation. A strong, trusting relationship is necessary before we can honestly examine with someone else the depths of our souls, of their souls, and our relationship to God. Well, thanks for listening. I was happy to learn of the excellent training organized by the Department of Church Health and Multiplication. We're fortunate in the Wesleyan Church to have Tim Rail's knowledge and experience in this area. So let me encourage you to use this opportunity to become better equippers of your saints for their work of ministry.